Now we've got the next heat up. Anwar, what are we looking at in this one?
Well,
Not
sure.
Are we going to top that last
No,
one?
I'm not sure we're going to be able to, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna. I think it's going to be a good race. We've got a few in here who are worth keeping an eye on. Pete Lepan's had great pace today. James Martin's had a really good, solid couple of second places as well. He'll be looking to build on that to keep the pressure on for his place in the final. Also, keep an eye on Craig McAllister. He's going to be looking to avenge that botched pit stop earlier on in the day. He's going to want to get a good result under his belt because he knows he's got the pace, and it's going to really annoy him that he wasn't able to capitalise on that race. But Lorenzo Stolk, he was rapid in his races today, and I think he's going to be looking for a strong result as well. So this is going to be another tricky race, I think. I wouldn't want to pick a winner out of that lot, because I think they're all fairly similar on pace, particularly James Martin's been quick today, and Lorenzo Stolk as well. Yeah.
And of course, one way or another, Pete Lepan has managed to bundle himself into a good position. He's just been really good at making it happen, hasn't he? He's got third place, a couple of third place, I think. And what do we say about him?
Yeah, he's been in the right place at the right time. You know, what else can you say? He's the good thing about Pete is he never gives up. Never ever, and I know that from him in EKL. He's always driving to the end, to the checkered flag, like most people do. But he's just so determined, and it doesn't matter what kind of kart he's in, what kind of situation he's in, who he's up against. He'll give it his all, and I think that's really sort of a testament to the results he's had so far. And we can see where he's ended up in qualifying for this session now.
Well, we've got Craig McAllister on the pole position. He's up ahead of James Martin, Nicholas Mason, Lorenzo Stolk is in fourth, Pete Lepan fifth, Lee Henderson, of course, we know, in sixth place, Kieran Gallagher seventh, Anthony Jordan eighth, Robert Lewis ninth. And who does that put? That we believe we may have Sienko in the race, we may not. We'll certainly check up on numbers there. But Craig McAllister, this is his best chance starting from pole position, surely.
Oh, absolutely. But the surprise there for me has got to be Nicholas Mason. I mean, that is a hell of a lap time from him there to get himself into P3 ahead of Lorenzo Stolk, and also Pete Lepan, who's been quick today, as we've been saying. So actually, Nick's going to be pretty happy with that when he looks up at the board and he gets pointed through into third.
Oh yes, when they point him down, he's going to be thinking, "Oh my goodness, I've got it to do now." But a great starting point to try and do it from.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I would look out for as well is that I think James Martin's been getting stronger throughout the day, and that P2 there, I think he's going to maybe look to build on that. So I don't think Craig's gonna have the easiest run to the flag. He looks like he's got good pace in quali, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as that.
No, it's when you say he's got good pace in quali, it's only 0.1 of a second, and that can soon turn around. We've seen people qualify at the front and then tumble down the order today for a variety of reasons, and including Anwar Barrell-Smith. Russell Ending, it's been a tough one so far. We're going to get this race started and we'll come back to you. Meantime, Craig McAllister, this is his big chance to get a result today. James Martin, and he's gone green, but he backs it up and everyone's piling forward. Craig McAllister nearly blew it there. Luckily, James Martin backed off with him, but McAllister assumes the lead. Martin running through in second place. Third, we've still got Nicholas Mason, and fourth place is Lorenzo Stolk, still, yes. And then Pete Lepan behind him. Coming down the back stretch here, and it's Craig McAllister. He knows this is his best shot of the day, I'm sure.
Yeah, and actually Pete Lepan made a dive up the inside of the snail on Lorenzo Stolk, but Lorenzo managed to hang it around the outside, which hasn't actually cost him too much time, thankfully. Lorenzo's managed to get back onto the back of Mason there, and he's hopefully going to look to push on from there.
Yeah, it's definitely what he's going to be planning. Russell Ending, you've been in some interesting races today. What do you think of this one? I guess you'd quite like to be out in this heat, right?
Not necessarily. I think with the quality of drivers here and the depth of the field, there's never going to be an easy heat. And I think particularly sort of when it's close, with the cars still being very good in terms of parity, I think there's not much to lose here or there. And I think particularly with any race, it's won or lost in the pit still. There's a lot of strategy calls that sort of can win or lose races. And I think there's sort of between 2 and 3 seconds you can win or lose in the pits by getting it right or wrong. I think that could be sort of the difference between making up 1 or 2 places in any race.
Absolutely. We've come up with a magic 10 seconds for the pit stops, and so we're keeping an eye on people being 10 seconds to get in and out of the pits and who that's going to put them with. Russell, is it easy to, when you're out there, to figure out that 10 seconds and know where you're going to come out, or is it quite hard?
I find it easier on the standard layout, as I've sort of got an idea, sort of good eye line of where someone's going to come out, but I found it very difficult on the alternative track, because obviously with the different layouts, you're trying to sort of spot someone and work out where 10 seconds is and be able to see that person on track without sort of looking backwards 3/4 of the time. Absolutely.
With what seems like a comparatively small change to the track, actually is throwing up a 3 or 4 second lap difference, so I can imagine that chucks all the usual equations out the window.
Yeah, no, definitely, especially with sort of the increased numbers of sort of slow speed corners. I think sort of drivers are able to sort of minimise the sort of the steering inputs and maintain as much sort of corner momentum as possible. Really sort of get the most out of the karts.
Absolutely. Craig McAllister continues in the lead, Anwar, and he's ahead of James Martin. James Martin, I guess, is doing his best to catch McAllister. Surely these guys are going to be wanting to stay out for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think James Martin is probably going to be looking to try and build on his 2 second places he's had so far and try and get himself a win here. I would say that they're at the moment, it looks to me like Lorenzo's starting to drop back just a little bit from Nicholas Mason. So it would be interesting to see how that pans out. But certainly at the moment, the front guys are ripping away from everyone else.
Absolutely, and we've not really talked about Lorenzo Stolkers dropping back from many people at all today, so the pace is clearly quite hot out there. Craig McAllister, he will know absolutely this is his best chance of a decent result. James Martin has rather stealthily thrown himself probably quite close to the top in the point scoring at this rate, and if he manages another second place, well, surely he's going to be looking good for a semi-final berth.
Well, I would certainly think that he'd be, based on this current position that he's in now and the positions he's had so far, that a semi-final should be easy for him. In terms of final, I think he's got a good shout at the final. Certainly there are guys out there who are winning heats non-stop, but as we saw in that last one, we had 3 drivers who'd all won 2 heats. Only one guy could come out with the victory, which means that Bradley and Verhoff's now have had not a bad result, say, but they've lost out in terms of a win, and that brings someone like James Martin back into the picture.
Absolutely. When you average all the scores out, Stefan Verhofstadt, if we pick on him, for example, he's got a couple of wins, yes, but now he finds he's got a 4th place, and arguably that's theoretically worse than James Martin with a whole ton of seconds.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it's going to come down to. I think, it's easy for people to say you're going to need X results to get yourself into the final, X results to get yourself into the semi-final, but you just can't legislate for some of the things that are going to happen. We'll have to see where... I think the only time we're going to really know is at the end of this round 3. That's when we're going to really know who's got the chance of being in the final and who hasn't. And then after that, it's anyone's game.
Absolutely, we will have a heck of a good picture after the opening 5 races tomorrow morning. Meantime, Craig McAllister looks like he's edging away slightly over James Martin, who in turn edging away from Lorenzo Stoll. Yes, Mason has actually lost a place. He's dropped down to 4th, and Pete Lepan is closing in on Mason. And obviously Lepan, he's got a great set of points to his name already, and he's going to be looking for more. And I'm sure, well, last year 5th would have been fine, but that won't be enough for him now.
No, absolutely. And it's just worth pointing out, actually, as we go back to Lorenzo, he's picked up the pace drastically now. He's putting in times quicker than the guys in front of him, and he's suddenly back in this race. I think Craig McAllister's built himself a healthy lead. It's done himself no disservice there at all. He's definitely done himself a favour. But I definitely think James Martin actually probably needs to be thinking about that now, because Lorenzo's going to come up behind him very quickly.
Absolutely, and all of our front runners in this race are staying out for quite a long time. There's no real sign that anyone's coming in or needs to come in. Everyone's pretty much in clear air doing their thing. Possibly Pete Lepan is going to be closing up on Nick Mason, but he's taking him quite an amount of time to do it, so much so that you could hardly say he's being held up.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really the key of it, is keeping the flow going, making sure that you're, staying in touch with everyone else. As Pete Lepan now actually gets quite close to Nicholas Mason as well. Be interested to see if he can make a move and maybe break free as well. But yeah, Lorenzo's certainly making inroads now into James Martin's lead there. But Craig McAllister looks to be stretching that pretty easily at the moment.
Yeah, Lorenzo Stock really seems to have woken up again, and he's got James Martin in his sights. I think he's just literally sped up. I don't think it's the others slowing down by looks of things, although his last lap there was slower than the pair ahead of him. He does seem to be just overall creeping up on them again. Nick Mason's now been caught properly by Pete Lepan, so Pete Lepan, are we going to see him come in the pits, I wonder, or if he's just going to stay out there and feel that he's actually getting pulled along by Mason. We don't know what he's thinking, and I think we're going to find out soon.
Yeah, exactly that. I think with Pete Lepan, he needs to make a move soon, to be honest with you. I think he's losing time behind Nick Mason. He needs to make a move. As far as I'm concerned, the front 3 perhaps maybe are just out of his reach now anyway, but certainly, if he doesn't make the move soon, he's going to find himself stuck behind him after the pit stop as well.
Absolutely, it wouldn't be the end of the world if Pete Lepan did make his stop now in terms of track position. He'd come out near the 16 car here, this one here. That, of course, is Robert Lewis, and Robert Lewis is pretty much out on his own. So if Lepan was to pit and come out either alongside or just in front of Lewis, he would have a significant gap Obviously, the kart in front is Kieran Gallagher, who's is it Kieran Gallagher? No, Anthony Jordan. Anthony Jordan is in front, and I don't think he's going to be much of an issue. So I'd have thought if anyone was going to pit, it might be Pete Le Pen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just again on that time round, Lorenzo looks a lot closer now to James Martin. So that gap's coming down all the time. I think that second place battle may come down to a pit stop.
Yeah, I think you could be right there. It's James Martin is definitely losing ground on the leader, Craig McAllister. Lorenzo Stolk is closing in on him. It's hard to exactly tell whether it's Martin going slower. He is actually the slowest of the three leaders at the moment, and that's why he's comparatively falling back within that gap of leader to third place. Stolk, of course, is going to be closing in on Martin. If Martin doesn't speed up, maybe Stolk himself would consider a pit stop, but it's going to be a while before he makes it yet. I think this race is relatively spread out, so much so that the strategy could go in any number of directions.
Yeah, absolutely. But what we have seen from previous races is that we do have spread out races such as this one, and then a pit stop just suddenly brings them all together. So there's plenty more distance to go in this one, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, Anwar. And Craig McAllister has a good lead now, but it's far from a done deal. He is trying to pull out a lead, but of course he's still not that magic number ahead of anybody except Kieran Gallagher at the moment, I don't think. In fact, it's only just to Kieran Gallagher. He would come out alongside him. So a little bit more work needed by Craig McAllister to make what we might term a safe pit stop before he's at risk of being in a battle with somebody or being held up. They've got 11 and a half minutes remaining, so plenty of time in this race. There's Craig McAllister coming into view now underneath the stadium area. And he's being chased by James Martin, who is dropping back into the clutches of Lorenzo Stolk. It does seem to me that McAllister and Stolk are the ones maintaining speed, and Martin falling back within that equation there, although not by much according to the timer. It is quite visible when you're looking at the track itself. There are no real battles to talk of out there on the track, but there is quite a close running thing between Nicholas Mason and Pete Le Pen, which is coming down the backstretch as we speak. Pete Le Pen, we saw him closing up on Mason, but now he's maintaining position. Anwar, is it possible that Le Pen has actually been catching up on Mason, and now he's with him, has almost assumed his pace?
That happens. I mean, that is possible. What I would say is perhaps maybe Pete catching up with Nicholas is actually partly Nicholas losing his own rhythm. He went for a few laps. As James Martin is in the pits, I believe.
No, it's...
is it not?
No, that's actually... Anthony Jordan, I believe. Anthony Jordan. Martin's still there. He's in the 14, as we can see, just coming through underneath the stadium. So McAllister's still in the lead from Martin and Lorenzo Stolk. Lorenzo Stolk has really stopped making inroads on Martin, and maybe Martin is actually easing away from Stolk and possibly even easing towards McAllister. Let's have a look at the times. He's running very close. They're all running really close. 32.3, 32.4, 32.4. And so not a lot in it at this point. Really holding station. I think we need pit stops for this one to explode, Anwar.
Yeah, exactly. And I still think we're not quite there with the front-running guys. However, that gap is shrinking all the time between James Martin and Lorenzo Stolk.
Absolutely. In fact, James Martin seems to be moving backwards and forwards between those two. He's now gone and moved backwards, back towards Stolk. It's as if Pete Le Pen's coming out the pits, so that's interesting. Le Pen has exited the pits, and he's exited in 6th place. He's got Kieran Gallagher ahead of him, just going around away out of view from the grandstands there. Kieran Gallagher now coming onto the backstretch, and Pete Le Pen is now going out of view, so that gives an idea. Pete Le Pen is onto the backstretch there. He's in 6th. He's obviously trying to use that pit stop to leapfrog people, but at the front there, it's really cagey. It's James Martin kind of moving forward and back. It's as if the gap between Craig McAllister and Lorenzo Stolk is maintaining, but Martin getting more or less. And here comes Stolk. Is Stolk going to make a move down the inside? Because Stolk is, he's stalking him, and it's not going to happen here. He's stalking him, as you say, Anwar. In fact, he's coming in the pits. It's Lorenzo Stolk. Instead of taking him on straight, he's going to try and do him in the pits.
I think that's the right choice.
Absolutely right choice. I think James Martin would have been a particularly difficult nut to crack. And they're going away now. And let's have a look at the lap time and see what we've got there. It's a good one. It's a good one. 43 seconds. So we'll take that. So will Lorenzo, I'm sure. Lorenzo cycles out back into 4th place. Mason has gone through to 3rd. And I think that pit stop there was Kieran Gallagher, which helps Pete Le Pen. Kira Gallagher obviously loses the place to Pete Lepan. Through in the lead, and in fact second place, that's James Martin. The 14 carts is in, and James Martin's made an excellent first part stop, and now he comes out the pits. Oh, this is looking very good. What's the lap time?
It's going to be very close as he comes through. I think Lorenzo's going to hopefully get a run on him down into the snail, but if anything, actually, it looks like Lorenzo's lost time to him through that.
Absolutely, because the pit stop was 2/10 faster by James Martin. James Martin got in and got out 2/10 quicker than Stolk, but Stolk is right there. Yeah. I think he could close on him still.
Well, he probably will, because don't forget, the first lap out of the pits is always slower on colder tyres, and Lorenzo's had a lap now to get up to temperature, so if anything, he should be back on him now.
Absolutely, and he is ever so slightly faster on best lap times as well. He is actually with Martin, and Mason's come into the pits now.
Will Pete Lepan get the jump on him? I think maybe.
Yes, here comes Lepan, and Mason's slow away. He's definitely going to get him, because Mason's slow away from the second stop, and Pete Lepan has leapfrogged Mason. That surely was his target there, and probably Pete Lepan is in position now towards the end.
And also Craig McAllister now 13-second lead over James Martin in second place. Even though he's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him, I think he can make his pit stop and have no problems at all.
Absolutely, I think that's Robert Lewis is following, and Robert Lewis is going down the inside of, I believe, that's Craig McAllister we're talking about with the red helmet, and into the, no, very close now. James Martin and Lorenzo Stolk. Martin really, getting a bit defensive there. Anwari's out of the picture for the win, do you think?
Certainly, I think McAllister's got this one in the bag, and to be fair, he deserves it. He's been pretty quick. I think James Martin probably maybe a tenth or two off, doesn't have the answer, but I think Martin will be happy with a second again. You can't turn your nose up at 3 seconds for sure. But I think it's not over yet. Lorenzo's not going to give up on that position.
And Lorenzo looking less and less likely ever giving up on that position. He's really working James Martin hard now, and James Martin's got a good points total so far for this tournament. However, he is more than 10 seconds. He's 13 seconds back on the race leader, Craig McAllister. So Craig McAllister could make a stop, come out in the lead with a couple of seconds to spare. So he's got actually time to take time to do it right and not risk a penalty as McAllister, and still come out with a fairly healthy lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And just watching this battle for second now, I've noticed James Martin, he's keeping a close eye on Lorenzo, looking over his shoulder at the right times. But I've noticed he's not really defending anywhere yet. He's sort of going mid-track here and there, but he's leaving a cart width. And if Lorenzo has his wits about him and lines him up in the right way, he could potentially go through here.
Yeah, at the moment it's a fairly gentle defence mounted by James Martin. He's sticking it in the middle in the most obvious places, but not defending absolutely everywhere, as you say, Anwar. So James is obviously still keen on setting fast laps more than actually defending position, although Lorenzo Stolk is looking pretty menacing there right behind him.
Yeah, Lorenzo's definitely got the pace at this stage in the race. If anything, I think he probably, if he's going to make a move, he'll have to do it soon. I think otherwise James is going to probably have enough pace in his pocket to keep it to the end. Having said that, we've seen what Lorenzo can do today. He's not afraid of an aggressive move if he has to. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something very late on.
Absolutely, he's got quite a lot of spirit, his Lorenzo Stolk. He's going to do his level best to relieve James Martin's that position. Martin continuing to stay ahead. He's not yet getting excessively defensive, although he's clearly trying to be as reasonably wide as possible without losing any time. In the middle of the road there by James Martin, as I say, defending in the more obvious places without forcing the issue absolutely everywhere on the track. But still, here comes Craig McAllister, the 12 kart, the orange helmet. He's crossing the line now in the red suit there, and so that's him looking very good. He's got we think about a 13-second lead, and that's over James Martin and Lorenzo Stolk. They're coming through now. It may even be more than 13 seconds now. It's certainly very convincing. 13 and a half seconds, absolutely.
Yeah, and certainly I think if Lorenzo's going to do that move, he's going to have to do it soon. Not because he stands a chance of catching Craig. I think Craig's too far gone now, but just purely because he wants to be in that position of defending on the last lap instead of James, really.
Absolutely, and we've got just under 4 minutes remaining, so a good 7 and a bit laps, and that's what's a move there by Lorenzo Stolk. He did try something there, but Martin had it covered. Again, James Martin, he's not really forcing the issue on defence. He's, as I say, here in the Snell section, he's probably going to enter in the middle of the road as we see there. Stolk goes to the outside, but Stolk doesn't take any advantage to that. So Martin just defending the obvious and keeping the pace. And here comes Craig McAllister. Craig McAllister into the pits, and he's got all the time in the world to do this, a 14-second lead. And so he's got time to just get it right, get in, get out. And yes, he is actually taking full advantage of that, because here comes James Martin, Lorenzo Stolt, but it's not really going to be a problem for Craig McAllister. Craig McAllister now safely into the snail section there with about a 5-second lead, and the back marker between them. Oh, a bit of bumping and boring as James Martin looks down the inside the back marker. He gets through okay, and so does Lorenzo Stolt. The back marker, we think.
Well, Lorenzo's closer than he's ever been now. I think he's going to have to do it here if he wants to do it. He's going to have a look down the straight. James Martin not going 100% defensive.
And Lorenzo Stolt taking a move down the inside. He's done it. He's made it work. He went to the outside. James Martin defended to the inside, but Stolt then shot to the inside himself. And, well, it was barely a cart's width. But Lorenzo Stolt made it work. And Anwar, you're thinking he wanted to do that way in advance of the last lap so that he's at least defending on the last lap. Yeah,
I mean, for me, as I already pointed out, James Martin was leaving far too many gaps available. He was doing a half-hearted defence there, and you know, someone of Lorenzo's experience is always gonna take that opportunity. And that was the closest he'd been all race. He knew that James wasn't going to fully defend it, and all he needed to do was just put his cart in the right place. And now it's done. I think James.
But the positions have changed back.
Well, that's impressive. James has managed to strike back quickly. And if I was Lorenzo, I'd be pretty annoyed with myself for that. Having worked that long to get into that position to then give it straight back is going to be frustrating for him.
Absolutely, and of course James Martin surely won't be allowing Lorenzo Stolt to get him in the same place twice. As they come down in towards this corner at the end of the backstretch, I'm sure that we'll see James Martin take quite an aggressive defence. Not really, he's leaving a gap if Lorenzo had chosen to take it, but Lorenzo didn't take it. He stayed to the outside. There's a minute and a half just over of racing to go, so maybe 3 laps possibly. And well, we'll see what remains here, because Stolt has shown his hand on where he can pass Martin, and I'm sure he won't get the second chance on that one. Jake Campbell-Mills, how do you read this one shaping up?
Like Anwar said, I think Lorenzo is probably kicking himself because worked hard to get past him, so it should be a good race though for the top 2.
Absolutely, and here we come. We've got Lorenzo Stolt down the inside. Huge bit of contact there, but really nobody's fault as such. James Martin tried to a fantastic move, as you say, Emma. That was a really good one there by Lorenzo Stolt.
That's move of the day for me. I don't think you're going to see a better one than that. I know when Ed White did that to Brad last year, he was very appreciative of it. Yeah. But that for me has got to be the move of the day. Absolutely brilliant. Again, exactly what I'm saying. James Martin leaving far too many gaps for Lorenzo to exploit. And hopefully this time, for Lorenzo's sake, he doesn't make the same mistake.
Absolutely. Lorenzo Stolt there pulling off the very definition of the word lunge as he shot down the inside on the final hairpin on James Martin. Now James Martin's actually losing ground on Lorenzo Stolt, so Stolt is really keen to pull away and not give Martin the chance to come back at him. He knows there's not a lot of time left, and he knows that he needs second place. He needs the points. He's got championship intentions of his own. Meantime, Craig McAllister,
and here he comes for the win,
taking the checkered flag, and it's a win for Craig McAllister. We've waited all day to say that one, and Lorenzo Stolt coming through in a well-earned second. James Martin, a worthy third. I know he lost second at the end, but it cements a good set of results by James Martin today.
Absolutely. I mean, third is not. I don't think he'd be too disappointed with that. I think he'll be disappointed in the fact that he did get that position back, and I think he really should have learnt his lesson after that to then cover it off for the rest of the race. But it's a learning point from him. I'm sure he'll turn around and look back on it and think, absolutely, I could have defended it better. But yeah, great move from Lorenzo there, and I think, to be honest with you, move of the day at the moment. But there's probably going to be better, and there's a long way to go in this championship.
It was certainly exciting, and you could see it developing way early, that one. The key, of course, James Martin, he had the position, he lost the position, he had the position again, and then he finally lost it. And Craig McAllister, though, he's really had that one covered all the way. He was able to make a pit stop and come out in the lead, which is what everyone who's among the super drivers has done so far. They've been able to create a lead and get out in it. So a well-earned result there. And we're looking for the Heat Race 3 now. I believe we're short of a driver, though. Adam Davis, we're looking to see where Adam Davis is, because he's not yet down to race, so it might end up being a 9-car race if Adam Davis has gone. So Adam Davis, we're waiting for him to get down, so head on down, Adam, if you're there.